Hey, welcome back everybody. Hope we're having a wonderful day so far out there, and we've got a lot to talk about in this morning's video, from severe weather ongoing in Texas to the potential of a big-time winter storm through sections of the Northeast come next week. So again, a lot to break down in this video and a lot of stuff happening in between now and then. So if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Make sure to like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know where you're watching from if you're new, and if you're a regular, thank you for coming back. It means the world to me, as it's really up to you guys to keep this channel running. I can only do so much, so I really appreciate that from you. Again, it goes a long way towards my feelings, I guess. Anyway, though, with that said, I guess we can really go ahead and jump right into it, because I don't want to take up too much of your time here on this Thursday. So we'll jump right into it here, taking a look at water vapor loop actually this morning. And normally whenever I do morning videos, I generally have to use something different than visible satellite to show you what we're seeing out there. And my good friend Mitch West, I'm sure many of you watch him as well, he uses water vapor all the time, and I think it's a great tool to really kind of dive into showing the overall pattern out there and kind of which direction it's moving. So thanks to Mitch for the idea on using the water vapor, and I'm going to go ahead and use it this morning. So now kind of diving into it a little bit, obviously whenever you look at this map, the first thing that kind of probably jumps out to you is this kind of green section down here just south of Louisiana. Well, that's some offshore thunderstorms beginning to develop this morning, and that general idea is likely going to also pick up back here into Texas. And in fact, you can already see it beginning here. You see this kind of area of white puffiness kind of beginning to blow up a little bit here on satellite. Well, that's some thunderstorms that are beginning to form and will likely continue to form going into this afternoon, bringing with them the potential for some tornadoes. So very important stuff there, and all of this is kind of being started by this little swirl you're seeing out here near New Mexico. That providing just enough lift ahead of it thanks to this Gulf moisture to kind of allow those air parcels at the surface to begin to rise and eventually condensate, forming clouds, and eventually condensate even more and form some rain. And we're going to see a lot of it here over the next couple of days. And again, taking a look at radar imagery now, you can already see a lot of that rain falling down here over sections of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana this morning, again getting in on some big time rainfall, especially kind of here near the Arklatex area and kind of near Texarkana, seeing a lot of that rain and surrounding areas. But as we go through this afternoon, radar is going to fill in, and you'll see that here on our next map in just a moment. Now, outside of that Texas rainfall, normally don't talk a lot about West Coast weather, but it's kind of important for what we're going to see later on down the line. And again, we've got a lot of winter weather advisories, winter storm watches, and warnings up for these higher terrains of Washington, Oregon, Nevada, or Nevada, depending on how you might want to say it, and kind of through the Four Corners region as well. Again, a lot of those up because we're getting multiple storm systems to kind of track through the Pacific Northwest over the next couple of days. And that is quite important for our East Coast weather because, again, these storms, they kind of enter the United States one place and they have to exit somewhere else. So where they exit and where that kind of lines up with cold air is going to be very important for the forecast over the next 5 to 7 days through much of the eastern half of the country. Alrighty, so let's kind of now take a look at some of that severe weather today. Again, that's a very important thing that we have to talk about, as we do have an enhanced risk up for much of the Houston metro area and kind of areas just off to the west of the Houston metro, kind of along that I-10 corridor and just north of that I-10 area. So again, obviously, anytime we see an enhanced risk, very important to kind of be aware of that and have a way to get those watches, warnings. And if you are put under a tornado warning, obviously, safest place to be is in the centermost area of your house, preferably below ground if you can, and in that room having no windows, preferably as well. Sorry about that, my phone ringer was on. Alrighty, so again, that enhanced risk today, very important, but also the marginal risk stretches all the way up just north of Dallas-Fort Worth into southern Oklahoma as well, and back out towards central Louisiana. So the enhanced risk and slight risk are, of course, the biggest worrisome areas today, but if you're in any of these darker shaded colors, got to have a way to get those watches and warnings today. And again, all that being driven by the threat of tornadoes. This is not a wind-driven enhanced risk. This is a tornado-driven one, meaning the biggest threat out there for any kind of severe weather was going to be tornadoes. Not necessarily hail or straight-line winds, but tornadoes definitely going to be the biggest deal today. And again, it's a very small area, but nonetheless important. So if you're anywhere here along the Gulf Coast from central Texas all the way back towards central Louisiana and as far north as areas just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, got to have a way to get those watches and warnings today as these storms roll on through. All right, so today is not the only day we're going to be dealing with some of this severe weather. Going into tomorrow, we do have a marginal risk as well for areas further off to the east. This going from kind of Baton Rouge and New Orleans up towards much of southern and southeastern Mississippi into the southern half of Alabama and the western tip of the Florida Panhandle tomorrow. Again, marginal risk for probably some damaging winds and also a brief isolated tornado also possible tomorrow afternoon. And that threat continues into Saturday for areas even a little bit further off to the east. So come Saturday, southern Georgia, kind of around Macon, Dothan, Georgia, back down towards southern Alabama through Mobile, likely into the Talladega area of Alabama, and then back towards Biloxi, Mississippi, and the Florida Panhandle as well, under the gun for the potential of some isolated severe storms. Nothing off the charts here, but definitely enough that the Storm Prediction Center does feel it is important to get that notice out to the public. All right, so again, that's kind of the threat areas to watch. Let me go ahead and show you what this is going to look like on radar through the next 48 to 60 hours or so. So, again, waking up this morning, we're seeing some of those storms and showers already beginning to develop there into much of eastern Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, as we just looked at on radar. That's going to continue through this afternoon. Expect more rain to build, and by the time we're getting into this afternoon and evening, we've got a very impressive shield of showers and storms all the way through much of Oklahoma, up towards St. Louis, and back down towards the Gulf Coast here, again, into eastern Texas and into much of Louisiana. Seeing some of these showers and storms rolling on through for our Thursday afternoon and evening. Now, as we go into the overnight, this storm system will begin to really get its act together back out here around the Kansas-Oklahoma border, and that's the point that things should begin to slowly clear out overnight through much of Texas as these storms then move into Louisiana and continue into Arkansas and Missouri overnight. Now, also, we do have cold air on the other side of this system, so we're going to have a band of kind of some snow setting up here on the northern end of this low pressure. So kind of in this area I have drawn out for you. Watch radar as we move this into Friday morning and afternoon and even into Saturday, as we could definitely get some snow here on the northern side, and we'll talk about those totals here in just a moment. So again, that rain continuing overnight, could still see some pretty impressive storms between now and, tomorrow morning through much of Louisiana. Noticing here some of those darker reds indicating a bit of an impressive squall line. Could bring some gusty winds and also an embedded tornado or two overnight tonight through Louisiana. But that rain shield still moving on through, slowly clearing on through Arkansas and even through much of Missouri by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. So, waking up for your Friday morning commute, could be seeing some snow again on the northern side of this thing through southern Iowa, maybe northern Missouri, seeing some flakes fly. But outside of that, really just a whole lot of rain through much of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, back towards Kentucky, Tennessee, and northern Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi for your Friday morning. So, again, mainly just some rain for most folks, but as we go through the day Friday, again, this shield of rain continuing to work off towards the east and north. So, again, Friday afternoon, the Ohio River Valley, less heavy than we're going to see for areas back towards Texas and Arkansas, but still a good soaking light rain through much of the day Friday, and very showery as well through much of the eastern half of the country, east of the Mississippi River here on Friday afternoon. Now, also Friday afternoon, again, we do have that marginal risk down here, so seeing some of these storms fire up, going to be very important to watch those. And right now, these look a little more discreet than today, so we'll see kind of how the Storm Prediction Center plays their cards on that one. May have to bump up the risk on those storms for tomorrow afternoon. But again, the big story tomorrow is just going to be mainly a lot of light rain and snow through the Ohio River Valley and up through the Great Lakes region, and showers kind of south of there through the Mid-Atlantic and southeast. Now, as we go into overnight Friday, if you're, got any plans Friday night here, Again, looks like some pretty widespread showers continuing through much of the northeast into New England, with some snow mixing in there at higher elevations. But the low pressure is going to kind of die off during the day Friday. So expect continued snow showers and rain showers back towards northern Missouri, through eastern and southern Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, seeing some of those snow showers Friday evening. And outside of those two areas of, more pronounced precipitation shields, really just some showers through the Appalachian chain and mid-Atlantic. But that's going to change pretty quickly, because come Saturday, while we're kind of, still dealing with some showery weather through the Great Lakes and Northeast, a more pronounced wave is going to once again develop along the Gulf Coast and bring some big-time rainfall on Saturday through much of the Southeast. So if you got plans this weekend, unfortunately, it looks like a pretty big washout for much of our southeastern states from Louisiana up towards the Carolinas. Again, a lot of heavy rain likely to fall here during that time period. And again, even Saturday could still be dealing with a bit of a severe weather threat once again here into some of the more Gulf states regions as this rain is falling. So that's now through Saturday afternoon, and this kind of shield of rain I'm showing you right now likely to continue into Sunday as well. So honestly, now through Saturday, Sunday looks pretty unsettled for most people. Not going to be raining the entire time for everybody, but definitely waves of rain coming and going over the next couple of days through this weekend. All right, so another thing that's important to talk about here are temperatures, as obviously a cold rain is very different than maybe a bit more of a mild rain, and that's where I've got a little bit of good news for you. So going into let me actually back this up a little bit. So going into this afternoon, honestly, pretty above average day for most people in terms of temperatures, and that trend continues going into our Friday, outside of maybe kind of down here into the normal cold air damming regions. Could see a little bit of cold air get stuck here into Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, but the good news is Friday could be cold there. Everywhere else pretty warm, and that cold eventually gets overtaken by very warm temperatures come Saturday afternoon. You'll notice here well above average temperatures for really honestly everyone east of the Mississippi River here, getting in on quite warm temperatures, and that'll last through Sunday afternoon as well. And then it's after that going into next week that things could change, and we'll definitely talk about that here in just a moment. All right, so let's kind of break down some rainfall and snowfall totals through this weekend. Starting with snow, again, nothing off the charts here, but we very well could get a dusting up to, 1 to 3 inches in isolated spots here, kind of in this band on the northern side of that low pressure system. Again, this is going through Saturday night. So nothing off the charts here, but definitely worth mentioning, as I'm sure we have some folks watching from these areas. All right. The other thing here, obviously, is going to be rainfall, so a lot of it coming for some folks. The first kind of batch of rain coming here into much of eastern Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then that kind of stretching up through the Ohio River Valley. 1 to 2 inches of rain likely for most of those people, with higher amounts of 2 to 4 for our folks right on the coast here from Houston through southern Louisiana. And then you'll notice even more rain as that second system comes Saturday through the southeast. That one going to be a real soaker, bringing 3 to 5 inches of rain, or at least 2 to 4 for most people through the southeast, through much of Georgia, Alabama, southern Mississippi, and Louisiana now through this coming Sunday. All right, so again, that's kind of everything going on through this weekend. Still dealing with that severe weather out there, that rainfall, and a little bit of snowfall. But let's take a sneak peek at next week. The models have been, I don't want to say all over the place, but still in disagreement at least as to exactly what's going to unfold. But some of our models are painting a solution that is quite interesting for much of the Northeast and really East Coast as a whole, because a lot of people are not going to see snow out of this, although some people very well will. But what I do think just about everyone's going to be impacted by here is some cold air come the middle of next week. So let's go ahead and break it all down for you. All right, latest GFS model here. Again, this is this current storm system moving on through that we just talked about. That thing kind of gets out of here through the next couple of days, and then here comes that second wave of rain, again going through our Saturday and Sunday here through the southeast, as we kind of took a look at here on our last model. That kind of moves through by the time we're getting into, Monday and even Sunday afternoon, looking much nicer through the southeast. Now this is when things get a little complicated here. You'll notice we have a lot of energy ongoing here into the southern branch of the jet stream with these multiple rounds of rain moving on through. As that's happening, we're going to get some energy to come out of the polar jet, and some of our models are hinting that these two could kind of work in tandem a little bit here to get some kind of snowstorm, or a storm developing, I should say, kind of in this circled region. And should that happen, we very well could get a pretty good whopper of a snowstorm into portions of the Northeast. So again, a lot of details to iron out here. And I'll show you the GFS first, because the GFS is the least excited out of all of our models about this kind of general potential. So again, we go into Sunday afternoon. You'll notice we definitely have some pieces of energy here. They're just not quite working in tandem on the GFS, meaning they're still kind of separate. They're not phasing together. And with that, it's going to be a lot warmer of a solution come Monday of next week. And most of that snow being left up into Canada with really just some rain showers through the Northeast and some back-end lake effect snow through the day Monday on our latest GFS model. Now, what the GFS does show, either way, is if we don't get much snow with that, we likely still get a very impressive reinforcing of cold air next week, going into the middle of the week, indicated by this very strong troughing on the map here. The GFS also very excited about a northwest flow event, so you'll notice kind of these snow showers popping up here on the GFS. Been hitting at this for a while, that we could get some very impressive northwest flow as far south, as far south as the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. So, you know, either way, still a very wintry solution on the GFS, even if it is the least excited, kind of compared to all of our models, at least in terms of big-time snowstorms. Alright, so European model, again, agrees all the way up to this week and really up through Sunday. This is when things get a little different, though, on the European model. I want you to notice what happens with these two pieces of energy. Again, on the GFS, they stayed quite separated. The Euro here, though, watch what kind of happens with energy 1 on the polar jet and energy 2 on more of the southern jet here as we go through the day Sunday and into Monday. You notice they kind of absorb a little bit, or they really begin to work in tandem and connect kind of as one big-time storm system, and then ride kind of along the Ohio River Valley, and eventually just off the coast of the Northeast. And by the time we're waking up Monday morning, or going into Sunday evening, Monday morning, we've got a pretty impressive low-pressure system just off the coast of the Northeast, bringing some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall, and potentially on the European model here, some heavy snow as well. So latest European model from overnight, again, still shows a swath of heavy snow through much of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, into much of upstate New York, even as far south as potentially kind of western Massachusetts there, and as far south maybe as a place like Connecticut. So not this on the European model, this is not just a higher terrain snowstorm. This is more of a just northeast snowstorm in general, even if not necessarily on the I-95 corridor, not very far from it. And then once again, the European model agrees going into the middle of next week that we get a reinforcing shot of some cold air here. Although less pronounced in the GFS, I will say. Still that troughing, though, in the east, indicating some cold air, although more focused on the northeast compared to really just the east coast as a whole on the European compared to our GFS model. All right, so definitely some differences there between the models. I will note the Canadian model and the UK Met model are a little bit more in line with the European model on this snowstorm next week. So the GFS kind of, holding its ground on an island right now. We'll see if it wins this battle, but I'm willing to bet the Europeans at least a little more close to accurate, even if not 100% accurate, as for what we're going to see come next week. All right, so the European model, in terms of chances of seeing accumulating snow past at least an inch for early next week, again, chances here pretty high through much of the Northeast on our European model, all the way from northern PA and especially into Vermont, New Hampshire. Chances getting up near 60 to 70% chance of at least an inch of snowfall accumulating in this part of the country. But chances also kind of, borderline the I-95 corridor through Boston, western Massachusetts, and then again into northern Pennsylvania. And also, again, something to notice here that the models are picking up on is the shot at potentially some very impressive northwest flow, even getting down here into West Virginia, and the North Carolina mountains. Chances are definitely there for that as well. GFS model, again, obviously we saw differences in the operational runs and also differences in our ensembles. So GFS is still confining most of the chance for some snowfall accumulating up here into northern Maine, into New Hampshire, and really into Canada more than anywhere else. But again, if this doesn't pan out on the GFS, we move it ahead, and then the chances of that northwest flow pickup going into the middle of next week. And this is a pretty impressive signal for northwest flow into the Appalachian chain from the Virginias all the way down into North Carolina. So if you've got skiing plans in the southeast next week, I think the middle of next week towards the end of next week look pretty good in that kind of Wednesday through Friday time frame during this first week of December. So again, a very wintry kind of look here on the GFS model, and we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that and see how they continue to differ. All right, that's the snowfall from next week. Again, still looking at the signs of potentially some wintry mischief. Well, we obviously need some cold air for that, so let's talk about that cold air a little bit here to round out the end of this video. So again, going into this weekend and really the first day or two of next week, it's going to be quite warm. I mean, we're talking temperatures 15 to almost 20 degrees above what they should be going into our Saturday and Sunday. But here comes that cold air going into the middle of next week. You'll notice next Monday, still relatively warm for most folks. But we're going to get some of that cold air out of Canada to begin to work in going into next Wednesday and Thursday. So by the time we get into that time frame, we could be, 5, 10, maybe even 15 degrees below what we should be this time of year. So I think the middle of next week, from about Wednesday through Thursday, even potentially going into Friday, is likely going to feel a lot like the beginning of this week felt. It was very cold for a lot of folks. We had some lake effect snow, some northwest flow ongoing. It looks pretty similar to that come the middle of next week before likely we get into a bit of a warmer pattern for at least a little bit, I think, going kind of into that second week of December. So that's a little far out there, but just kind of what I'm seeing right now in the models. Alrighty, well, again, a pretty, I think, useful video today. I think we covered a lot from severe weather to some snowy weather, hot temperatures to cold temperatures, really all over the place in this video, but that's just kind of how the weather is performing out there right now, so that's kind of what we have to talk about. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. We've been on a really good run the past couple days in terms of views and subscriber count gaining, and I'd love to keep up that momentum here into the end of the year. So if you haven't already subscribed, definitely, again, consider doing that. And of course, like the video if you like it. Maybe share it with somebody who you think might also enjoy the video and find some use in this forecast, as we do have a very active pattern coming here into the start of December. With that said, though, again, have a great rest of, I guess this is the last day of November now, and I'll see you all tomorrow in December.